So here we are, sitting in Aston Martin's entry for its second century plan. That means we're entering the second century because it's had a great first 100 years. This is the all-new DB11, and it is brand new, and it replaces the DB9. There was a DB10, but that went to somebody with the initials JB. Apparently it's very important to the Brits. So here in the DB11, we're still dealing with Aston Martin goodness, but made better. This moves away from the old V8 architecture. We still have a V12, but it's got two turbos now. We have a great 8-speed gearbox, we have rear-wheel drive, we have a wonderful Grand Touring machine. It's not all perfect, and it never is with an Aston Martin, but it is pretty damn good. And in some spots, it's great. So Aston Martin has gone away from the naturally aspirated 12-cylinder engine here, and it's a bit of a shame. Naturally aspirated engines are wonderful in terms of their power delivery, the sound they produce, but it is an Aston Martin and it still sounds good. With the two turbos, this engine is making 600 horsepower and it's making over 515 pound-feet of torque. And that big ass engine is backed up by the ZF 8-speed gearbox, which is a good thing because that's a very good gearbox and that's why everybody uses it. Except GM, they should really fix that. Sends the power out to the rear wheels. It's got a great interior. That's one of the major places where the DB has evolved. Aston Martins on the inside were always nice places to sit, but every button you pressed did something wonky and weird. All of this technology here is backed up by Mercedes-Benz technology. So that means it works, and it works well. But all the touch points are swathed in Aston metals and leathers, and so everywhere you touch looks and feels like Aston Martin, but it works like a Mercedes-Benz. That's a very, very good thing. No more odd nav characteristics and weird Bluetooth phone connections, and it just works. It's a Mercedes, it just works. Now the fun part isn't dealing with all this crap, it's dealing with this right here. This massive steering wheel and these big shotgun rifle-like paddles right here, because that controls all the action, and there are multiple modes to that action. There's a GT mode, which this thing is really calm and comfortable in that mode. You put it in Sport or Sport Plus, you can do that just for the engine and transmission, or you can do it on the chassis side as well. So you can stiffen things up, you can make things sharper and more responsive, things get louder because the exhaust is baffled, and then you can just punch it into the back of the Aston Martin in front of you, or make Andrew Collins spill his coffee. There's a bit of sadness to be found in this car too, though, because there's a bit of required feature creep that you wouldn't expect to find in a car like this, but here it is. It has start-stop. All right, fine, I get it. There's a quiet startup function, which is actually kind of good if you don't get along well with your neighbors, though if you don't get along with them, maybe you want to use the loud startup. When you turn the car on, if you hold the start button, it starts up in quiet mode, but if you just press it, it comes to life, and that normal wah, that Aston Martin cold start brap, that sounds great. Speaking of the noise though, it still sounds good. It doesn't sound as good. Much like Porsche in a way, where all their cars are turbocharged now, those cars sound like lawnmowers starting up. This car doesn't sound like that. It still sounds like a great 12-cylinder engine, but it's muffled a little bit, and that's because of the turbos. And it's not like we're getting great fuel economy on this thing. Andrew and I are seeing about somewhere between 12 and 14 miles per gallon. Now, we're not taking it easy. We're having fun on these California canyon roads, but 12 miles per gallon is not ideal. But the noise, it's still good. One of the great noises I really like, which I mentioned earlier, these paddle shifters. It's like slotting a rifle into place. It's really cool. The paddle pole itself, and this is super nitpicky, is a little bit longer than I would like. This is the first Aston Martin to use electronic power steering. And they were actually a little bit sad that they had to go that route, and they were worried about the challenges it presented to making sure they delivered the same driving experience. There's no deadness on center though, which is a common thing you find with electronic power steering. That isn't here, and that's damn good, because when you go fast left to right, having that dead spot and then picking up the steering again, that feels like crap. And automakers are getting better at tuning electric power steering, and Aston Martin, thankfully for their first effort, has it pretty right. One area where I'm let down though, the brakes. You need a surprising amount of effort to haul this thing down from speed. there needs to be a lot more initial bite in the brakes, and it's just not there. I think it's because this is more of the Grand Tourer. You could probably get sharper bite out of the Vanquish S and the upcoming Vantage. I would expect them to, you know, slam you forward a little bit. Not slam you, it's still an Aston Martin, still going to be elegant, but this is a little softer than I would like on the brakes, especially when you're hustling it through canyons, because there's decent heft to be moved around here. Not tons of heft though, because we also have a lot of aluminum. That hood out there, it's a clamshell hood, one piece. It is the single largest piece of aluminum in the automotive industry. So Aston Martin had to talk to a bunch of different suppliers before they settled on the one that could deliver consistently that piece of aluminum, aluminium as it were. Now a car like this obviously is not cheap, and it shouldn't be cheap, inexpensive. It's probably around $250,000, and that gets you into the middle of the Aston Martin family. Vantage is at the bottom, Vanquish is at the top, Rapide's somewhere in the middle, I guess, and the DB11 is there in the middle with it. So, for $250,000, you get an absolutely gorgeous, and I swear, I know there's some tough angles and photos. In person, this thing looks fantastic. The interior on this car is a little bit dark, but I do like this chopped up carbon fiber trim. That's actual carbon fiber that they just chopped up. But we've seen some other colors on this launch. The tan interior is gorgeous. And it's Aston Martin, and they have their Q Design branch, so they could do anything you wanted color-wise. But here with all the black, it's just like a little bit cave-like and imposing, but it does wrap around you nicely, like a sporty car cabin should. It's still fast as hell, 0 to 60s under 4 seconds. I know, other cars in this class are faster than that, but Aston Martin's never been about the numbers, and that's an easy thing to say when you're not the fastest, but I truly believe that they don't chase the numbers. This car will clear 200 miles per hour, it'll do all the wonderful things you want it to do, and it will look the best in the valet court, even compared against the cars that are faster and more aggressive and more hardcore. This doesn't need to be that. It's an Aston Martin. There's a little bit of class and elegance there, and this car has it, and I think it looks damn good. And it's a good way for the brand to usher in a brand new century of wonderful machines. I wish I wasn't on this road right now for this part. With the 2 turbos, this engine is making 600 horsepower, and it's making well over 500 that's my phone. Hold on. Yes, that's the theme to Westworld. So we'll say no to that. Seats are great, steering's good, brakes are mediocre, engine's wonderful, but the sound isn't there anymore. There's your 30-second review of the DB11. And close!